You're with Philip Clark on ABC Radio.
Yes, good evening or morning to you. It's Friday the 17th of February. Or not just Friday, not quite Friday yet. Of course, if you're in WA, it's just gone 10 o'clock. It's just gone midnight in Queensland and just gone 1 o'clock. All right, in this last hour of Nightlife for me for this week, we'll have a look at our issue shortly. We'll also check in with the second part of our podcast too, Samantha and the Secret. Thanks for all the texts, by the way, in relation to the challenge. It was good fun, the challenge tonight, wasn't it? Just back on Uranus, by the way. AJ says 2033 will be the next time that Uranus completes a year. It's only had 3 since discovery. And my other texter says, I just looked up how long a day is on Uranus, and apparently it's only 17 hours and 14 minutes, so that's a lot of days in a year. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Well done, Harry. Well done, Eric, too, for answering quite a lot of questions tonight. June and Anne were in there, too. A nice challenge to wind up my challenge for the week. We'll be back. I'll be back on Monday, of course. All right. In this hour, we're going to talk about renting in a second. Love your views about all of that. And we might get to play some Carpenters and get into our podcast, too.
Nightlife with Philip Clark on ABC Radio.
Like your thoughts on this. Should Australia introduce long-term leases for renters and better protection for people who rent? I ask this because Australia's first national survey of housing tenants has revealed that renters feel like they have very little security and lack the power to demand conditions be improved in their homes. Choice and the National Association of Tenant Organisations surveyed over 1,000 renters and found that pest control, peeling paint, leaks and mould are some of the top complaints. And the other major concern for renters is long-term security around leases. What do you think about this? 1300 800 222. There are some spots free on the board. This particular issue of long-term security around leases, I think, an important one, isn't it? 83% of the 1,000 respondents to the survey were either on a no fixed-term lease or signed up to a lease of less than 12 months. And many reported that the inability to negotiate a lease for longer than 12 months had a very significant impact on their lives. I know from experience myself over the past 5 years when I've been renting that it does, in fact, it is, in fact, a significant thing in your life if you think, well, at the end of the year or when the lease finishes, I'll probably have to move. How does Australia compare globally? Not particularly positively. In Germany, for example, indefinite leases are available. In the Netherlands, tenants are offered an initial 12-month contract with an option to extend for 5 or even 10 years. A landlord can't terminate a lease without the tenant's permission and a court order. In Switzerland, only 34% of Swiss own their own home. Landlords have to give 3 months' notice to end a lease and legally cannot evict a tenant without due cause. So once you've got the lease and you're paying the rent and looking after the property, they can't kick you out. I'd like to hear from you, especially if you're a renter. Would you like the option of a long-term lease? Would you feel more secure if you're able to rent a house for more than a year? And how would that change the circumstances of your life? Give us a call, 1300 800 222. The spot's free. Should Australia introduce long-term leases for renters? And ought there be better protection for renters too? 1300 800 222. Text me on 0467 922 702. You're on Nightlife with me, Philip Clark. We're talking about renters and whether Australia should introduce long-term leases for renters. 1300 800 222 is the number. Spots free on the board if you want to grab one. Let's kick off. Paul, hello.
Oh, good day, mate. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you.
Look, it's pretty interesting, actually. Before you could really comment a great deal, I think Australian government have to look at things like capital gains tax. I'd love to hear what also real estate involvement is in Europe. be money for jam for real estate agents, wouldn't it, if they can get a 10-year or a 20-year lease? What worries me also is job security.
So just go on. Why would it be money for jam for real estate agents?
Well, instead of having to find a new property for someone every 6 or 12 months,
I see.
You slip someone in, they take their 7, 8 or 9% every week, and thing just rolls on.
I see what you're saying, but I mean, I wonder in the end, does it make that much difference, really? I mean, the real estate agents getting a cut if they're managing the property but they're getting a cut. They're not going to get more, are they? They just don't.
Oh, they won't get more. It'll just be easier for them.
Yeah.
Half the battle is, because I've rented this year late last year for the first time for 30 years.
Yep.
And the process to get a place is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Waiting in line, the cost of it. I've got an issue with, you walk into a place after you've struggled to find one, and then you fail to look around properly. We've just had an enormous heat wave in New South Wales. I don't have fans or air conditioning. Rang the real estate and basically was told, you've got the place as it is. That's the way it stands.
Yeah, I know, and that's a major complaint in this survey that they said that this is the 10 most common problems for people with for renters: pests and cockroaches, doors and windows that don't close properly, peeling paint or tiles coming off, leaks and flooding, mould that's difficult to remove, no fly screens on the windows, difficult to keep the property warm, difficult to keep the property cool, locks that don't work, and a key appliance that doesn't work.
Well, that's the other thing. There's no fly screens on this place either, and no heating. So, when you're struggling to find a place because there's another 20 people in line also looking at it, you see it through rose-coloured glasses, you jump at it, and all the issues come out.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the overseas market is. Are they just swamped by real estates managing property or not? I don't know.
I think there's just a different renting culture, because people who, if you own a house, of course, you expect to live there for some considerable time, and indeed, it's the same should be of a renter. If you can't buy a place and you want to live locally and send your kids to school and all that, you expect to be there for some time.
Oh, look, I agree, but does the seller then sell the house with an ongoing lease? Is that the arrangement of that? So people automatically aren't buying their own place, but they're automatically buying an investment property?
I assume, I think in many cases that's true, actually, that just selling the house doesn't get rid of the lease.
The other thing too that I've heard today, which is quite a worry, is the drop in full-time employment, the casual employment. Like, obviously that's going to force more people into a rental situation. But how secure is it then when work's getting lighter and lighter and rents are getting more expensive?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point too. All right, Paul, we'll move on. Others want to have their say, but appreciate your call. Some good thoughts there too. Calvin, hello.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, good.
Mate, you couldn't pick a better time. I'm having such dramas at the moment. Like, I owned my own house back in 2010. You
bought one in 2010?
Bought one and busted me backside to pay things off.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the wife would go, you want to go away for the weekend? And I'd say, well, we've got no money because we've paid all our bills and we don't have that kind of money because we're trying to pay the house off sooner, as most people try to do.
Yep.
And we decided to go rental. Our first rental was brilliant. 3 years, the owner lived 2 streets away, anything wrong, he'd come down and fix it that day.
Right.
Not a problem. And then he decided he wanted to put the rent up $50 a week for the same property. No difference. I just went, no, we'll look for something else. And then we moved into this joint a year ago and paying exorbitant rent on the Central Coast, New South Wales. And the owner said to us, I said, we're looking for long-term. And he said, that's great because this is an investment property. And our lease ran out 2 days ago and we got a notice of termination because he wants to move in and knock the house down and build a mansion. And I said, well, we would like to stay. He said, well, that's tough. He said, you've got 90 days to get the hell out. I said, I've got 2 kids and stuff. He said, I don't really care, mate. This is my house, so get out.
Yeah, well, this is exactly the point, isn't it? And he told you it was an investment property.
Yeah, he said it's purely an investment property. And now after 12 months, He wants us out, and basically in 90 days we don't have a leg to stand on. It's wrong. I'd love to find a lease with 5 years, 10 years on it. It'd be great.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, because you're basically looking for... How old are the kids, Calvin?
2 and 4.
Yeah, well, you're basically looking for somewhere to sit for a while and put the kids through school and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to have to be chop change. But landlords, I run 2 businesses, a delivery business and a cleaning business. And I clean a lot of rental properties. Mm-hmm. And landlords in my area are after one thing. They don't care who rents the joint as long as the money comes in. Mm-hmm. But when they want to when they want their property back, they don't want to have to be told, "Oh no, you can't have it." They take you straight to court. Like I've got to go to court on March the 8th to dispute his notice of termination, unless I find another property. Like I've looked for 15, 16 properties, and everyone says, "Oh yeah," because we're a couple of small dogs, which are outside dogs. Mm-hmm. And you look on these rental properties that say pets on application, so you think, cool. Mm-hmm. And on a number of them, they've gone, "Oh no, because you've got pets." I'm saying, well, why list it if you're not going to agree with pets? I just think it's an absolute... The rental people out there don't have a leg to stand on because the owners are the owners and they think they rule the roost.
Yeah, well, that's all right, Calvin. Thank you. That's what is coming through from this survey too. We're talking about renting and renters, and whether Australia should have better protections for renters, and in particular whether there ought to be government encouragement to introduce longer term leases for renters, maybe 5 to 10 years, to cover the situation which Calvin's talking about. What do you think? 1300 800 222, 1300 800 222. Some spots free if you want to grab one. Cheryl from Mossman has texted me saying, "As a landlord, I'd love to have a long-term lease to give me some certainty. I can't get tenants to sign any lease longer than 6 months. Then they go month to month. My current tenants have been in for over 2 years with no increase in rent. They get up and leave with only 1 month's notice." Yeah, Deb says, "I hope if the rule changes that it goes both ways. You pay out the lease, it has 12 months on it if you decide to leave or until a new tenant can be found." Yeah, well, I don't know, Deb, if you have to mitigate it, don't you, if someone moves out early. Susan says, "We've rented the same house in Sydney for 13 years, no problems." Okay. Adrian, hello.
Yes. There's a bad habit, obviously, in this country of short leases for greedy purposes, so rent can be hiked all the time. Investment can be drawn in, called in, without telling the previous caller and his situation with his kids what the real deal was at the start of the lease.
Yeah.
I think the higher turnover of tenants, more than 1 year, should be penalised so that negative gearing benefits are lost progressively the more tenants you go through. Incentivising landlords to keep longer tenants, which keeps their emotional social stability going. It also means that longer-term tenants are more likely to do things like buy fly screens off their own bat, which are cheap, and have insulative curtains and put their own, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think it'll stop rents rising every time a lease expires. With that push thing of people wanting a rental property, more increasing numbers of desperate tenants at the mercy of this high turnover thing.
Yeah.
I also would catch the Airbnb situation whereby there's 20 people going through a place on a weekly or fortnightly basis a year, and the landlord's making so much more, but the property isn't available for rent by local people.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, if you're looking for some sort of stability and certainty in life, the current rental environment doesn't really provide it for you, does it?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian. Tom, hello.
How you going?
Yeah, well, Tom.
I'm going to stick up for landlords because I'm going to be open and honest with you. I've been a renter.
Yep.
I've bought my house. I'm now an interstate truck driver, so now my wife lives with her mother and I'm away all the time.
Yep.
So I'm renting my house in town. Now, I've had tenants, they've come in for 6 months. The real estate have signed them up for a 6-month contract. I've wanted a 12-month contract. The real estate industry needs to look at this. My real estate agent, when they get a new tenant, they take a week rent straight off the top.
That's the fee you pay them.
That's the fee, plus you pay a weekly fee. But to find a tenant, they charge you 1 week's rent. Right?
So they've got a big interest in turning over tenants.
the real estate people have a big interest in turning over tenants. As a landlord, if they have a complaint, I'm straight on fixing it as soon as I possibly can. Well, there's no hesitation, right?
Yep.
But I've had a tenant just recently had a 6-month lease. The landlord or the real estate agent was trying to get him to sign. Didn't sign it. They end up trashing the house. Now, because they didn't have a lease, my insurance to cover it for loss of income and all that sort of stuff, because they didn't have a lease, I basically had no insurance claim. So the damage they basically did, it was a small hole in the wall, but they trashed the carpet, they put burnt holes in the carpet, and the insurance guys have said, no, that's wear and tear. That's, apart from the hole in the wall, I'll get, but the real estate, the people in the middle, like I'm a landlord, and I think I'm a good landlord because if there's something wrong with the house, I get it fixed straight away. And if you're going to look after my house, I will look after you.
Yep. No, well, that's fair enough, Tom. Yeah, no, well, good on you. No, good thought. Good thoughts, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Paul, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Well, thank you.
I would have to agree that tenants in Australia do need a longer term. We've asked for more than the 12 months.
Yep.
But they won't give it to us.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the current place, Paul?
The current place, it's just on 14 years.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's pretty unusual. You rented the same place for 14 years.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, considering one that they've done no internal painting, we've got those vertical curtains, if you call them that.
Oh, those vertical blinds, yeah.
Yeah, which are useless for heat or light or anything. We asked for the insulation when it was free to help cool the house because it's a hot house. No, we didn't get that. When we've got to pay our rent via a gateway billing system, now we can pay our rent on time out of the bank account into theirs, pay it on time, but because of this system this real estate agent employs, it could take you a week, 7 days, 8 days, could be 4 days for the rent to appear in their account. Now, because that happens, they can put you with a notice to breach because you failed to pay the rent.
Yep.
So what also happens, you get charged to pay your rent, which, from what I understand here in Queensland, is illegal. And I also understand from another ABC, it was a television show on the Privacy Act, that by rights, any renter in Queensland can go up to the real estate agent, if it's through a real estate agent, and pay cash, but they won't accept cash. And trying to get things fixed in a timely manner with this real estate agent, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Whose fault do you reckon it is, Paul? Do you reckon it's the real estate agent's fault, or do you reckon it's the landlord's fault?
I tend to think it's more the real estate agent because I've spoken with the landlord in person.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he has got hellishing trouble contacting the property manager in relation to his property.
Yeah.
There is some ratio in regards to the number of properties and the number of property managers that they've got. Now, if they've got less property managers, it means that the real estate agents are going to make more money because they're not paying the property agents to manage them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that point too. All right, Paul, thanks, mate. We'll move on, but yeah, I get that too. You wonder sometimes that's right, that agents blame the landlord and landlords blame the agents. Rowland, hello.
Good morning, Philip.
Hi.
I'd like to talk about 2 points.
Yeah.
I'm a Swiss national, and I had the experience of renting in Switzerland, which was a wonderful experience to have.
Yep. Only about 35% of people own their own houses in Switzerland. Apparently, most people rent.
That's correct, because there's a lot of state housing, which is very cheap and very good and affordable. Private rental is a bit more expensive, but again, the landlords are fantastic people. They're usually foreigners who own houses for rent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a wonderful experience. Recently just come back from working over there for a couple of years. I'm here in Melbourne now, and I find it discriminating against my wife trying to find a house to rent with my two children.
Right.
My wife is a foreigner like myself, of Asian descent, and as soon as they see her, we've witnessed it a couple of times, they just put a line through our application.
You reckon that's right? So as soon as they saw an Asian face...
Exactly. A white person...
You reckon that happened, don't you?
I have witnessed it, and I confronted the agent and said, "Why did you do that?" He said, the landlord doesn't want mixed families.
What?
Yep. And we took it to the ombudsman, and they're investigating it at the moment.
Yeah, well, good. That's good. I'd pursue that, Rowland, because it does sound pretty offensive to me. Okay, all right, thank you. Chris, hello?
Yeah, it's all a bit of a schmozzle, isn't it?
It is.
I've witnessed both sides, because my grandmother was renting in Germany, in Hamburg, and she was at least 20 years in the one apartment, and I think they have different statutory requirements there where you actually are entitled to a long-term lease, but I'm not...
Yeah, no, they do. We were talking about that at the beginning. They do, yeah, that's right.
Not 100% sure on that, but anyway, she had a lovely little flat with a balcony overlooking a garden, and it was terrific for, well over 20 years. And I rented in Haberfield for 3 years, and before that in Glebe, and you are at the whim of somebody who'll kick you out, basically.
You are.
And we had two little children, and we had to move, so we had not much choice, but we moved out west instead and bought a house. Yep.
So, to give yourself some stability at least.
Well, at least you've got a roof over your head and it's your own, But in those days, you could actually afford a house. These days, you can't. No,
I know. There's a bit, the property equation has just changed completely, hasn't it? Yeah. Yep. All right, Chris. Thank you. Vicky, hello.
Hi, Phil.
Hi.
I've sort of rented all my life, basically.
Whereabouts are you, Vicky?
I'm in Coffs.
In Coffs
Harbour.
Yep.
Yeah. I was in Sydney to go to college and all that sort of stuff. I had to move something like about 9 times in 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
I have been a homeowner, but I've been in the same unit in Coffs now for 23, 24 years, something like that.
Renting for that period?
Renting.
Okay. How come? Can you tell me about the owner? Who's the owner?
Oh, look, I've had 4 or 5 different owners since I've been here.
So everyone's just buys it as an investment unit, do they?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a very old building in a fantastic spot in Coffs Harbour, don't get me wrong. Okay. I'm on a very good wicket.
Yep.
I mean, the owners are great. We look at, there's four units. We all look after the garden and look after everything.
Yep.
And they're fantastic. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic. And, of course, every time someone sells, of course, you go, oh, my God, am I going to have to move out, all this sort of stuff. But, I mean, the new owners have been great. They've spent an awful lot of money on it. And, of course, you always got that in the back of your mind that they're going to decide to do something with it.
Yeah.
Because it's such an old building, are they going to knock it down? Are they going to build units on it? Are they going to do whatever? But I guess when you rent, you have to really worry. That's what you worry about. It's always in the back of your mind. I mean, I've been lucky to be here for 23 years.
Yeah, that's a remarkable story. Thanks, Vicky.
Thanks,
good on you, because it's not common, is it? 1300 800 222. Texts coming in too. Eden says, Phil, my mother-in-law's been in the same flat in London for 40 years. It's a lifetime lease. Yeah, we don't have those things here, do we? Paddy says, Phil, a couple of points. Tenants and the agent landlord are required to complete an an entry and exit inventory. So broken locks and mould and fly screens, etc. are noted accordingly. Also, can you please clarify whether or not the Rental Tenancy Authority, or whatever it is called these days, is state-based and has different rules and terms? Yes, it is. It is state-based, Paddy. It is. If we are looking for extended leases, I think a national system is required with consistent rules. Yeah, well, even if it's not a national system, I mean, surely on a state basis too. I mean, state governments have got the ability to regulate these things. BMO says tenants ask for things to get fixed more often than owner-occupiers would do in their own home. I know this for a fact. I'm an electrician by trade who for 10 years was a service manager for a large electrical company based in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. There are rubbish landlords and property managers too. Yes, no question about that, I guess, too. 1300 800 222, lines free. Tony, hello.
Phil, how are you, mate?
Very well, mate.
Good. Just in relation to that first caller who got his 3 months' notice.
Yeah.
So this current move and the previous move I've done within the last 3 years, the first time I was rejected for 46 homes for rent.
46 applications you made?
46 applications, correct. And the move that I did just to get into this current home, we hit 48.
Whereabouts are you, Tony?
I'm in the northern suburbs in Whittlesea, Melbourne.
Okay. Well, what's 48? What's the problem?
I've got 8 kids.
Ah.
So I understand from the owner's point of view, you know, but when you jump these places and there's 10, 15, even 20 families applying,
yeah,
obviously they're going to choose one who's got the least kids.
Well, yeah, I suppose. I mean, do kids wreck a property? I don't think they do they? I mean...
no, but obviously there's probably a bit more wear and tear on the carpet, on the walls and whatnot, but
yeah.
Every house I've moved from, I've painted the whole house. Every wall is inside.
Yep.
And I've, generally speaking, left it in better condition than when I left. It's not the agent's the problem. I do the credit checks. I check out. No, I've never missed a payment.
Yep.
I've recommended the whole bit. But as soon as I see the kids, bang, that's it. And where I currently am, I just signed a lease to renew it for another 12 months last October. And then end of December, the owner rang up directly and said, he's got a family issue. He's got to sell a property. Can I move?
Really? Yeah.
Now, the law used to be where they just give you 3 months' notice and you have to move.
Mm-hmm.
But within the last 12 months or 2 years, perhaps, it's changed and both have to agree. So he can't really kick me out unless I agree. So stretching it, I've got till October, but I've got to be out no matter what.
Well, that's very tough. You've got 8 kids. What are the age range of the kids, Tony?
The oldest is 16.
Right.
And youngest is 3.
Right. So, okay. So you really need somewhere stable, don't you? Because, I mean, packing up eight kids can't be easy.
It's a challenge, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and because he said, look, can you move? We started looking for other rental properties. The first one that the wife was open for inspection, the first one was last weekend. When the wife rocked up on her own, there was already 15 families there waiting in front for the agent to turn up and open the inspection.
Wow.
And surprise, today was just a confirmation by text message, so he didn't get approved.
Gee, Tony, that is tough. That is.
So we've almost hit the 100 mark of properties we've been rejected from. So the next month is going to be challenging. Yeah.
So you're saying it's not an issue about you paying the rent or anything like that. It's just when they see how big your family is.
Well, at the first move we done about 3 years ago, they wouldn't say, and they looked at us and they said we can't say.
Yeah.
But the move coming to the house room now, they'll just blatantly say, sorry, it's too many kids. The landlord doesn't want too many kids in the house, which I understand. I've got nothing against the landlord from that point of view. It's their house. Mm-hmm. There is a bit more wear and tear, but now openly they say, sorry, too many kids. I've got a friend whose sister is a real estate agent. The first question she asked, how many kids? Of the first question. So the first bloke who's only got the 2 kids, I've nearly racked up 100 rejections. So,
yeah, it's tough. It's tough, Tony. There probably ought to be a better deal for people like you, I must say. All right, mate. Thanks. Appreciate for telling me, giving us your experience. Dean, hello.
G'day, how you going?
Pretty good, thanks.
Mate, I'm actually a landlord.
Yeah.
And just in relation to your last caller.
Would you rent Tony a house?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because the amount of damage I've had done to houses for children is phenomenal. The amount of money it has cost me to repair damages from kids is
yeah. What do kids do?
Drawing on walls, putting holes in walls, both internal and external, smashing windows, fly screens. The list goes on and on. Damaging kitchen, cooktops. Mate, and when people move out,
are kids not going to damage cooktops, are they?
Yeah. Well, the last one that happened, moved out a couple of weeks ago. The father explained that they had a candle burning on the kitchen bench, and
I see.
Things like that. The stains that have got to be replaced. You obviously want to rent out a clean house.
Sure.
As a landlord.
I mean, to some degree, can I put this to you, Dean? I'm just playing the devil's advocate here a minute away, because I've been a renter myself over the last 5 years, but I also own a property too. Yep. And I've also been a landlord in my life too. To some degree, you're going to have to accept that, the house is going to have to be repainted and recarpeted at some point. That it's
Absolutely.
not it's not going to come back to you as good as you set it out. That could set it out because wear and tear is normal.
Wear and tear, absolutely. Yeah. Wear and tear. You wear it on a chin. You expect it. It's like buying a car.
Yeah.
They obviously get wear and tear. It's the actual damage that gets to you. Now the guy just a moment said the real estate agent. First question they ask is, do you have kids? First question I ask is, how old are your kids?
Oh, okay. So tell me about that. So if they're very small, would you're better than if they're 15, 16 and 17?
I generally go for older kids.
Right.
Teenagers. They've had more schooling. They've had more life training.
Yeah. Because the truth is, in life, parents have kids. It's more common than not.
Yeah. Another caller a little while ago said that he's been kicked out because the owner wants to move in. It's their house.
Yeah.
I think if you've worked hard to be able to buy at least one investment property, it's your right to take that house back whenever you need it. It's a very hard thing for renters to find houses. Like the last caller said, there was 15 families outside. That's hard. That's hard. And even with our number of kids, that's hard to get into.
Yeah, I'm not begrudging you doing what you're doing, Dean, but in a world where, these days house prices have been driven up largely by investors buying multiple houses. And, good luck to people if they can do that. But that has meant, though, that people are going to have to rent. And if you're going to because a lot of young people particularly will never own a house if you're in, Sydney or Melbourne.
Have the house prices gone up, or are they just harder to get?
No, they've gone up in real terms. The property equation's changed,
Okay, right. That's not something I'm not particularly followed. I bought my very first house 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've bought a number of houses after that through good advice from financial advisors. Maybe if you've got 8 kids, go and speak to a financial advisor. They may be able to help you out to buy your own property and one day become the landlord yourself.
That's true, Dean, but buying a house, if you've got 8 kids in today's property market in Sydney or Melbourne is pretty much, from a standing start, it's pretty much impossible.
Yeah, nothing's impossible.
All right,
Nothing's impossible.
All right, Dean, good to talk, mate.
No worries, have a great night.
Thank you, you too. Yes, our issue, should Australia introduce long-term leases for renters? Thanks for all those contributions, very thoughtful calls on what I think is just increasingly just going to be increasingly is going to be a really big issue. And we've basically got renting laws that were set back in periods where everyone was expected at the end, or most people expected they would end up buying a house, but you can't buy one anymore. Where does it leave you?